Hey, how's it going, guys? Today I'm gonna be making a tier list on how important these fights are to each of the fighters involved on the UFC 300 card. All the way from career defining to not much. There's not a lot at stake at all. So yeah, without further ado, the first fighter we're putting on the tier list is Cody Garbrandt, the first fighter on the card and the tier list. So this fight against Figgy, I'm gonna say it's very important because his his legacy is kind of being called into question. I might actually I'll move him up to career defining because his legacy is being called into question because a lot of people are saying his only good win in his whole entire career is against Dominic Cruz, and that might be true. Because he lost to Dillashaw twice, then he beat Rafael Asensio, then he lost to Kai Kara France, or he lost to Rob Font, then Kai, or it was those two back to back. I forget what order. And then he beat Trevin Jones and Brian Kelleher. So he's really beat nobody and lost to any big matchup. He's had minus Dominic Cruz, obviously. So yeah, a lot of people calling his entire career into question, his whole entire legacy. Moving on, Davison Figueiredo. This fight for him, it's I'll put it at very important because he's not that high in the rankings. Like if he was number 2 and lost, he's still 1 or 2 fights away from a title shot, even with a loss. Especially with good wins. But I think he's sitting around number 8 or 9, maybe 10 at lowest. And a loss to an unranked Cody Garbrandt could set him back down to 14 in a new weight division, and he's gonna have to really climb his way back up into the title picture. It could take 3 to 4 fights in that case. And I forget, I don't know how old Figgy is, but just being set back like that in general is never a good thing. It's just a lot. It's a lot easier for him and better for him if he goes out and wins this fight. And it's another thing. Like, it's a good career moment to beat the former bantamweight champion in a new division. It's always good, obviously. And yeah, so Figueroa is 36 too. So this is like he's got one more run at the belt at bantamweight before it's cooked. So yeah, this is a very important fight for him. Moving on. Jim Miller. So I'll put Jim Miller at slightly important because he's not making a title run. He's not like his legacy's not really being called into question with this fight, but he has won on UFC 100, 200, and 300, and he's fighting a ranked Bobby Green, so he could find himself back in the rankings at he's in his 40s. How old is Jim Miller exactly? Jim Miller is 40 years of age exactly. So yeah, he could find himself back in the rankings at 40 years old if he beats Bobby Green, which I predicted him to do. If you haven't checked that video out, go do that. But yeah, this could be a huge fight for him and like him personally. But it's not that important of a fight overall. I mean, important if he important of a fight because the only thing that really hurts is if he doesn't win all three of the 100, 200, and 300 cards, because nobody's really going to be worried about him being in the ranking stuff. Moving on, Bobby Green. I'll put him at also slightly important because he'll lose his ranking spot, but again he's not another up and coming contender that people think he's going to compete for the belt. There's it's not that bad if he were to win or lose. If he wins, it's great. Beats Jim Miller, a guy who's 4-1 in his last 5 on a 2-fight win streak right now. But yeah, he's not competing for a title, and neither is Jim Miller. This is just a fun fight between two legends of the lightweight division, man. Like, I think they were supposed to fight before too, so it's a fight that people they want to see it. It's supposed to happen already, and now it's finally materialized. Okay, moving on. Marina Rodriguez. There's not much stake, not much at stake at all, really. I might move Bobby Green. Yeah, I want to move Bobby Green down to here. If I'm putting her down here, I think because this fight is not very important to Bobby Green. He's not fighting up the rankings to move up. He's just protecting his ranking. Even if he loses, nobody expects him to move up in the rankings anyway. So yeah, all right, Marina Rodriguez, not much at stake. when I looked up her picture, I looked at everybody's picture to get them on this tier list, and I just searched up their name, went to images, their images came up. She was the only one where when I hit images, it was completely random things. Like, she's not a very big name. People just, and WMMA is not the most popular anyway. And I think even if whoever is challenging, I don't see Grasso or Shevchenko, whoever ends up champ at the time that Marina Rodriguez would fight for a belt if she were to win. I don't see Marina Rodriguez beating either of them. So yeah, I just don't think much is at stake. Obviously, title shot is so for her, but in the grand scheme of things, like, not much. Moving on, Jessica Andrade, another one, not much at stake. She's still getting paid bank to show up and fight. I think she got paid $250K to show last time or something crazy like that. It was over $150K. She could just keep showing up for paychecks, win or lose. She's getting bank. Yeah, and she's already clean. She's already washed. Everybody sees her as washed anyway. It's not like her impression's gonna change on anybody. So yeah, moving on. Renato Moicano. I'll put him at slightly important because people aren't expecting him to win. I picked him to win, but I see a lot of people picking Jalen Turner, and if he loses, it's like, oh well, we didn't think he was gonna win anyway. But if he wins, he's moving up the rankings. He'll probably get a bigger name. Who do you think? Maybe he could. Who would be his next fight? That's actually a good question. I think he would probably fight Fiziev. Winner of this probably fights Fiziev. Yeah, that's probably right. Cause yeah, they'll probably fight Fiziev or Dariush. I could see Dariush. All right, we're back. So yeah, Moicano, just you know, just fighting up the ranking a little bit, one spot up, just trying to move up. If he loses, it's whatever. He can bounce back. He's bounced back from losses before. Yeah, moving on. Jalen Turner. This fight is kind of important for him because he's this big 6'3" guy, and if you keep losing to these lightweights, he's already 14-7. He's lost to a smaller guy in Mateus Gamrot. He got outworked by Dan Hooker, knocked down, nearly submitted. He only beat Bobby Green. He came in late, no disrespect to that, but Bobby Green is just not that highly rated anymore. He's past his prime. He's old. So yeah, Jalen Turner. If he doesn't win this, he should probably move up to welterweight and get a fresh start there. If he's not beating Moicano, because I don't see him succeeding that much more at lightweight if that's the case. So yeah. All right, moving on. Diego Lopez. This is another one that's kind of important. So he's young, and he's got a lot of hype. So if he loses, his hype is to die down, but he's young and he could bounce back, especially with how good he is against who he fights, Sadiq Youssef. So yeah, Sadiq, if he wins, he'll set Diego Lopez back a little bit, but it's not going to be like unrecoverable amounts of setback if you were to lose. He has the ability to come back, especially because he's young. And yeah, moving on. Sadiq Youssef, slightly important. He just lost to Barboza. He'll probably be ranked at 14 or 15 if he were to lose. But I think he's very good at striking. I think he almost knocked out Barboza. But I don't think it's going to be that detrimental to his career if he were to lose, especially because he doesn't have the hype that Diego Lopez has. And they're lower in the rankings. I feel like if you're lower in the rankings and you lose, it's a lot easier to recover, I think, if you're that good. But it's a lot easier for him to recover, Diego Lopez, Diego Lopez and Sadiq Youssef. Especially Sadiq because he's in the rankings already. So if he were to fall to 15, he would just have to fight once and he'd be fighting ranked guys again and just defending his ranking spot once. So yeah. All right, moving on. Kayla Harrison. This fight for her, it's gonna be one of these two. I'll say damn near career defining because she's switching from PFL, where she was the shit, and she's representing a whole company right now to show that their guys can compete with the UFC. And she's taking a big risk by going down 2 weight divisions. So she's also showing that she could cut weight and do good at multiple weight divisions. So this is a big fight for Kayla Harrison to beat Holly Holm. And Moving to, speaking of Holly Holm, we'll put Holly Holm at very important because this is her last shot. She doesn't win, it's over. No more title shots, and she's losing to a PFL fighter. So she's here to prove that the UFC reigns supreme over PFL, no matter how hyped up you are. And Kayla Harrison is fighting to show that PFL fighters are worth it and that she can win belts in multiple different, what are they called, companies, different companies. All right, moving on. Aljamain Sterling. This is a very important fight for Aljamain Sterling because he's obviously moving up from bantamweight to featherweight. He's here to show that he can do it in both classes. And yeah, because what Calvin Kattar ranks at about 7, I think. So if he wins, I can see them putting him in the top 5, maybe like at that 5 or 4 spot, especially if he beats him decisively. But sorry. Yeah, I can see them slotting him in at that like 4 to 6 range. And if he were to lose, he'd have to fight down the rankings even more. He'd probably get like I don't even know who he'd be fighting. So he's also just doing this for himself, to show that he could do it at multiple weight divisions and that he didn't just fluke his way to a bantamweight title. All right, moving on, we'll have Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar is going kind of important because he's coming back from a long layoff. He's older. A loss here really sets him back. Calvin Kattar is really good too, and Calvin Kattar is 36 years old. So a loss here sets him back, and being that old in these lighter weight classes is it's such a big handicap that you face. So it's really important that he wins and keeps himself around that title picture, because if he beats Aljo, he's probably 1 or 2 wins away definitely from a title shot. And Aljo beats Kattar, it's 1 fight, then you're at a title shot. So yeah, it's very important for both these guys, but especially Aljo because he's the one moving up, trying to prove that he could get it done in 2 weight classes. All right, moving on. Alexander Rakic. This fight, slightly important. Rakic is coming off that injury, so if he were to lose, people would be like, oh yeah, he's just coming off a long layoff. It's that ring rust. And he is, how old is Alexander Rakic? That's kind of important. He's 32 years old. So yeah, especially for these heavier weight divisions, he takes a loss here at 32. He could bounce back. Age isn't like once you hit 35, you're done up in these upper weight classes. You get to like 40 here. So yeah, a loss here for him isn't the worst possible outcome, especially because it's to Yuri, who people rate very, including myself, rate very highly. But I actually picked Rakic to win, so not that matters. But yeah, so I don't think this is that important to him for him to win. Moving on, Yuri Prochazka. I'll say very important because he got 3 fights into the UFC, fought for a title, and then lost to Alex Pereira. And this fight is to prove that he's not overrated. I get it, he's a champion, so he's not overrated, but you got to look at his wins. He beat Volkan Ozdemir on short notice, respectable. Then he beat Dominic Reyes, which at the time looked like a very good win, but as it's just kind of aged very poorly. So that win's not that impressive. And then he was getting his ass beat by a senior citizen, Glover Teixeira, before pulling out the submission. Was it a rear arm triangle, rear naked? It was something like that. But he pulled out a submission in round 5 after being down 3-1 on the scorecards. So yeah, this is and then he lost to Alex Pereira, obviously. Early stoppage, I think, but he probably would have gotten finished later in that ground and pound. But I think Mark Goddard, I think he should have let him keep going a little longer. Excuse me. But yeah, Yuri Prochazka, this is big because if he loses, man, his career's gonna start coming. His skill level's gonna start coming into question if he was really that good. We're gonna start seeing videos like that about Yuri. So yeah, if he wants to shut those people up, he's gonna win. Moving on, Cody Brundage. You know what? I'm gonna say for him, it's kind of important. Only, oh no, he's already no, he's not in the 2-fight losing streak. Never mind. It's not important at all. It doesn't fucking matter. In big fights, and he's gonna have to go fight a contender of some sort. Now, who he would fight, I have no idea. But we could see the end of his days getting high profile fights, or maybe not high profile fights, but like high stakes fights, like where title shots on the line or titles on the line. So yeah, this is a very important fight for Charles Oliveira to win. Moving on, Jerome Holloway. Where am I putting Mr. Jerome? I'll put this fight at I'll put this fight at kind of important because Max Holloway, if he loses here, he always has the featherweight division to fall back on. Ew, bad voice crack. He always has the featherweight division to fall back on, and he can just fight a contender there and get to a shot with Ilya. He'd probably fight a Brian Ortega again or something. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, he can just fight any contender down there, and he'll get a shot at the belt again against Ilya, which I think he has a decent chance to beat Ilya, but that's for another day. And yeah, it's not like this isn't going to be career defining if he loses to Justin Gaethje in another weight class. And yeah, speaking of Justin Gaethje, this fight 100% career defining. Not because losing to Max is a bad look, but we remember Gaethje saying he's making one more run at the belt after that Fiziev fight, and his run would end here, and we could see the last of Gaethje in the octagon. We would see. I think if he loses, Gaethje retires, and that's the last of Justin Gaethje we'll see, and he will retire not having won a UFC belt, fighting for it twice, losing both times, and losing the BMF belt to a featherweight in Max Holloway. So Justin Gaethje winning this fight is the difference between people putting his whole career into question and what could have been, to hyping him up for a title fight against whoever the champion is at the time, which I think will still be Islam. But yeah, moving on. Yang Xiaonan. I don't know. Like, ain't not much stake at all, really. Nobody expects her to win. So if she loses, she loses. If she wins, she wins. It's not that important. Because it's not like it's bad for her country. She's not representing she's representing China, of course, but she's fighting another Chinese girl for the title. So China still holds the belt no matter what. And yeah, moving on, Zhang Weili. We'll say very important. Very important, yeah. Because she's already started her dominance to the point where if she loses to a striker and Yang Xiaonan and gets caught, her career's not going to come into question. But it's still a bad loss when any dominant champion loses. If you look at when Anderson Silva lost to Weidman, it's like, oh shit, Silva's washed, and he goes on this big losing streak. When Rousey lost for the first time, whenever these really dominant champions lose, like something seems to go wrong. Even like when Peter Yan lost, he goes 1-4 in his next 5. It's just like when a dominant champion loses, shit hits the fan for some reason. I mean, even Usman, small sample size, but he's 0-3 when he was like indestructible. So yeah, Zhang Weili, very important fight for her. Moving on, Jamal Hill. So this is obviously the main event, but I'm gonna put this fight at kind of important, or I'll put him at kind of important. Not because it's like, oh, he lost the title, it's not that big of a deal. I think it's because he's injured. People are expecting him to lose. Just because, and he always has the injury to fall back on. Not that he's gonna make excuses, but the people picking him, if he loses, they could fall back on the fact, oh, he had an injury. He'll be back. He could probably get back to the title in one fight. And he's only got one loss since when he broke his arm against Paul Craig, who he probably would have beaten. So it's not like he's losing his undefeated record either. It's just he's losing a fight. It sucks. But he can get back. Jamal Hill, he can get back. He's not that old. And yeah, he'll be fine. All right, moving on. Alex Poatan Pereira. I'll put him in the career defining because he's 36, going on 37, I believe. He's never defended a belt. in either weight class that he's won a belt in. So he's still won two. Like, nobody's gonna deny that he's a great athlete, but not defending either belt, you see how that affects Conor. He's not as big of a star as Conor, but you see how that affects him when people call in to question how good he was as champion. So yeah, not Conor McGregor, Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira, a big fight for him just to prove that he could reign supreme in the division, dominate for a little bit. And yeah, just prove that he's the guy, man, at light heavyweight, and that it wasn't just a fluke that he got here and an early stoppage that made him beat Yuri. So yeah, that's it. For me, that's gonna do it. Here's the tier list. How each person's career, like how important this fight is to them. So yeah, that's it. And see you guys later. Peace.